A very warm welcome and thank you for tuning in to the first episode of our series on the Asset Thinking Treasurer webcast. Throughout the coming months, we will be bringing you conversations on finance, the Treasury function, and the role of the Treasurer, which has moved from a support function to become an enabler as businesses adjust to plenty of changes, such as on automation, new technology, business processes, new payment rails, the reshaping of businesses via M&A, and big topics such as on climate change, ESG, and how Treasury and Finance are responding to these challenges as well as opportunities. Before we start today's conversation, a shout out to BNP Paribas, our exclusive sponsor and the consecutive winner of the Asset AAA Transaction Bank of the Year for 2021. Today, we are delighted to have with us Sofia Hammoucha, Head of Transaction Banking Southeast Asia, BNP Paribas. Now, based in Singapore, Sofia leads a team of cash management, trade, and supply chain finance specialists who develop, implement, and service trade and treasury solutions for corporate clients. Welcome, Sofia.
Thank you, Daniel. Nice to be with you.
We also are pleased to have Emmanuel Brouillet, Vice President Finance at Thales Asia. Thales, with revenues of 17 billion euros in 2020, is based in Paris, and it serves the aerospace, defense, and the security markets. Emmanuel has been in Asia since 2003, first in Beijing and then in Singapore as CFO of Gemalto, which Thales acquired in April of 2019. Emmanuel's brief covers 14 countries in the region. Now, Thales Asia's hub in Singapore employs 1,500 people, and it acts as a manufacturing center, research and development center, procurement center, and a treasury management center. Hello, Emmanuel.
Hello, Daniel. Thanks a lot for your introduction.
Today's topic is on treasury opportunities and priorities in 2022. A trend that has taken root is how businesses are constantly reshaping activity to optimize their operation. Treasury needs to be responsive to this ever-changing business strategy, and so should service providers. Now, let me start by asking Emmanuel what his thoughts are on what's ahead for him and Thales in Asia. Emmanuel?
So specifically for myself in Thales, we are working on a significant project, which we have read in the press. Consequently, the sale of his transportation business between Thales and Hitachi. So we have recently signed this contract, proceed to this investor. And our concern in finance is indeed to be able to move on this M&A operation, meaning to duplicate our infrastructure, which include the treasury infrastructure, to have an independent transportation business cut from the rest of the group that we can indeed pass to Hitachi in a very simple manner. So here, the debate is really flexibility, and we have two contradictory trends generally in the world. We want to be more flexible, but in the same time, we have more and more compliance, concern, and constraint. So how do we manage indeed to do this kind of restructuring in a very speed manner, taking into account all our compliance constraints when you create a bank account, when you negotiate a bank facility, etc., etc. It's not a simple, light, and direct process. So managing the two in parallel will be critical for us to succeed in this investment project. So that's one of the priorities. Second priority, which is COVID-related, is in fact that a lot of governments have tried to stimulate their economy by specific budgets, for example, infrastructure budget. So they are ready to put budget in the table, but you say budget, but you need money in front of the budget. And generally, they don't have it. So one of the critical elements for Treasury is to come with innovative, creative, and competitive solution for financing for all this project. And that will be also the main trend of the year is to be more and more efficient and convincing towards our customers in proposing financing, which is really a critical item in commercial negotiation now.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And Sofia, likewise, we've heard from Emmanuel. What are your thoughts in terms of your other clients? What are they sharing with you, and what are you seeing might be their focus?
Just rebounding on what Emmanuel said, and which illustrates very well the evolution of the role of the treasurer in line with their new constraints. So for once, really simplifying and unlocking efficiency for day-to-day operations, and in order to support all these constraints and projects that they have. But on the other side as well, be an advisor as they are more and more within the corporate, beyond the day-to-day, related to projects, related to new strategy that they have, and be able as a transaction bank to support that as well and move forward. So obviously, in order to kind of be in parallel to their constraints, key topics will be how to automate faster, how to be more digital, and how to enhance our advisory capabilities with regards to key items that we see today in terms of financing needs, LIBOR transition, how will that really affect it, FX volatility, interest rate hikes, a lot of uncertainty that is coming in that will impact concretely all what Emmanuel has illustrated.
Absolutely, Sofia. Thanks for sharing. Indeed, a lot of moving parts. Emmanuel touched on something very important, which is the focus area on finance, which is to support business. Now, Emmanuel, what innovative ways have you started to explore that is suitable to meet your requirements?
It's more and more going and proposing to customers turnkey offer in order that they have the whole financing of their project. They don't want to get bothered with that part, and they really expect us to take the lead in proposing a full solution for them. And one of the constraints that we have is indeed we have partner banks that are generally worldwide leader banks, but very often the government introduce an additional data, which is working also with a local bank. Let's say in Indonesia, suddenly we have Mandiri in the picture to discuss the financing. And then we need to work cleverly and smartly between our banks and these local banks in order to find a solution that is going to allow everybody to have his share of this proposal and this offer.
Yes, indeed. Collaboration is key. Maybe stepping back a little bit, Emmanuel, describe to us your treasury operation in Asia and how it works. Is it now fully automated? And share with us some of the initiatives that you undertook.
I think that the basic work has been long automated and is fully efficient. So I think that everything that is cash management, cash pooling, hedging also, the hedging is a very significant part of our activity, is fully operational and efficient today. And I think that we have run all the automation and modernization that we could do on this kind of tools. So recently, one of the last steps, for example, was to solve cash pooling issue cross-border for countries with constraint on forex, like China. And we successfully implemented with the help of BNP this kind of cash pool. So that was really the last part of the puzzle, how to make sure that our cash is flowing within the group with no technical constraint and with no time lag. So all of that is implemented. So what I'm saying, and I was saying earlier, is that the part that we have to investigate more and work more is really the financing that is becoming critical, but the rest is already well implemented, in my opinion.
Interesting. And Sofia, how are you as a service provider like BNP Paribas making it easier and simpler as well for the needs of that Emmanuel mentioned? And what are the opportunities do you see out there to employ some innovation, even using technology to allow for all of that?
Yeah, indeed. So maybe take it on two aspects or two angles. The first one is cash management, obviously, because that's the more automatable business. And Emmanuel has shared in Thales, for example, the whole infrastructure and the base work has been done, and they were at the forefront of really ensuring that all their business and the day-to-day operation at the treasury level and with their bank fully automated. However, it's our role as well, and we continue to do that, to introduce new capabilities, because you have the infrastructure that is fully digitalized, but you have additional capabilities that can come in to enhance efficiency. So how do we introduce real-time payment within a setup that is already fully automated and digitalized through global network propositions, but still be able to get the benefits of new capabilities that are coming in through real-time payment? We have deployed it in all Southeast Asia, for example, through APIs capabilities that could enhance in certain areas of reporting and notification. So beyond the actual execution of the transaction, all the servicing part can as well be digitalized and giving back information in a timely manner, secure manner to the client. So in order to enhance, and that will link to the second angle, which is financing. So in order to be able to plan all the financing, we need also to be very clear on our cash position at any time. And then on the financing side, obviously it's first is starting the discussion as soon as possible in order to be able to embed financing and commercial conversation, as Emmanuel has shared. Make sure that we deploy as well our interbank relationships in order to support multi-bank constraints that the client might have. And on the digital front, more and more, obviously, simplify the communication with the bank. So for things as simple as guarantees or document exchanges, we deploy solutions that could enhance the workflow conversation with the client. This is, for example, for BNP Paribas, Document Exchange Connect, that is that kind of conversation and negotiation on guarantee text, for example. Deploy other solution like this. But more complicated is the supply chain world, or supply chain management world, in terms of receivable or supplier financing that could help in those financing of projects, and how we can tie up with third-party platforms that could really facilitate, on top of our proprietary platform, the uploading of all the invoices and all that, but also give the choice to clients like Thales to simplify the onboarding of multi-banks, because when we are tying up with a third-party platform, then we can lead the financing for our client, but in the same time, ensure that it's simple to onboard other banks whenever they have to, for client constraints, as Emmanuel said, when you need to onboard a local bank, but also for just risk distribution and having more access to the market.
Yes, as Thales Asia is pretty advanced, as we hear, in terms of treasury automation, as Emmanuel shared earlier. But after 2 years of COVID, we cannot ignore its impact. Now, Sofia, to understand this, how many of your clients have actually embraced automation functions, and as we heard what's happening at Thales even before COVID, and have accelerated, which has been very helpful. But how many of your clients have been encouraged or found the need as a result of COVID to embrace automation and adopting things like Document Exchange Connect?
Well, it's a wave, to be honest. We have been surprised really by the level of requests that we have received. Obviously, clients are working from home, so we need to be more flexible, and the adoption of e-signatures, Document Exchange Connect, for example, things that just simplifies the workflow conversation with the bank has been tremendous, and is really a wave of requests. It's almost all our clients. And this is the most simple digitalization post-COVID, which is just digitalizing the conversation with the bank in terms of how do I submit my documents, how do I e-sign, because just typically it's very complicated to give paper. And you have all that spectrum until what Thales is doing, which is much more embedded into their day-to-day, going with more global and sophisticated solutions. But at the simple side, I could say almost all our clients are there. Today, all our transactions, 98% of our transactions are totally electronic with our clients. And on the servicing side and the reporting and the flow, it's almost 100%, because just simply there is no choice. But this is the most simple digitalization that can happen just to respond to COVID. Going into more complex situation, I think we have more and more conversations now. The clients have a choice, have really a lot of choice between proprietary platform, Swift-based platforms, new APIs that are coming. So the conversation is continuing, and it's really a large part of our clientele.
Yes, indeed. Emmanuel, you touch on financing as a key focus for you as you look into the next 12 months. We are seeing a recovery that may be underway across the globe and certainly in this region. Which are the markets that would become important for you going forward? And what would be necessary for the treasury function in order to support the growth of some of these important markets to you?
Yeah. In fact, for us, the question is not really recovery of the market, because in many cases, there has never been a real COVID effect. We had the luck in Thales to have a very diversified activities. So clearly, activity like aerospace was deeply impacted by COVID, that's sure. But you have other activities like defense that have nothing to do with COVID drivers and that are more geopolitical driven. Or you have even in the transportation activities, in fact, you had a boost from additional budget given by the government. So in fact, this COVID gap did not exist in Thales. In a way, we have already rebounded. So if we look at our key markets today for Asia, they are the ones that are defense related because of the situation and the tension with China. And we have few countries that are clearly taking the lead in developing their infrastructure. That's mostly Indonesia for now. And I think that a bit later over time, it will be Philippines. So the key focus is Indonesia. And I think that in terms of treasury support, we are exactly like we described before, to address these major contracts that are coming. The key is the financing. You have these countries coming with huge program to develop their defense infrastructure or their transportation infrastructure. These countries do not have the money to do it very often. So how do we fund them? That's the key question for us to succeed in this key market for the next 2-3 years.
And as you look to these opportunities, Emmanuel, the reliability of your supply chain is paramount, I think, to be able to capture these opportunities. And how are you strengthening your supply chain and perhaps using finance to make sure that they are resilient?
It's really being competitive. The key issue on top of the issue that are technical and reliability of your product, which remain the key point. You need first to have an offer that is technically the best, but once you are it's really competitiveness. And contrary to a few years ago, the financing has become one of the criteria on which they are going to assess that you're competitive. And then it's difficult for a certain number of banks to adapt the level of aggressiveness that you can have with local banks, right? That have the advantage of the relationship with the customer. They can be also really extremely aggressive. The key on top of a technical offer, because if you don't have the technical offer, there's no point to discuss, will be really the competitiveness of a financing offer, taking into account the crunch in budget of all these countries we are working with. And this competitiveness is even more difficult because we have to address it in competition with local banks that have the advantage to know perfectly the local administration, the local authorities. A significant number of these banks are public, in fact, and they can be extremely aggressive. So it's really to position ourselves compared to competitive offer in terms of financing that is going to make the difference in securing this big budget in the future.
We've been hearing financing is key, but even as we identify the opportunities in the coming year, one topic that we've been hearing a lot about is on sustainability of the businesses. And as we reflect on COP26 in Glasgow last year, I wonder, Emmanuel, at Thales Asia, how are you starting to build the sustainability in the business? and also particularly in meeting expectation on net zero?
That is indeed becoming one of the key concerns of the group at Thales overall level. And for the time being, the group is building a comprehensive and complete plan to address these issues. And we have not yet go to the stage where this overall roadmap will be declined as objective for each of us in the countries. But we have already objective in carbon footprint and in reduction of emission. So these are already objectives that have been pushed down to us already since last year, and on which we have been working very hard, technically speaking, in order to reduce the level of carbon footprint, for example, of our factories. Yes, this is already well implemented, but it will be an acceleration. It's a trend, there's no doubt, and it will accelerate over the next 2-3 years. The group has an objective already to reach a target within the next 2-3 years, probably.
Sofia, we know it is also a very, very strong focus at BNP Paribas. Now, how can Treasury or finance become a vital part of that conversation? And how are you helping companies in their own journey to net zero?
At the Treasury level, I think clearly it's a new conversation. Even if at the corporate level, the conversation has been happening for some time, it was at the board level, at certain really high level strategy level projects and long-term financing through bonds and through project financing. Going down into the Treasury level, it's a new conversation, but that has accelerated quite strongly the last year. Because the governments have committed across Asia, typically with firm targets, firm timelines. Now we have full visibility on really what the governments wants to do in Asia, and that really had a ripple effect on all the economy. So in transaction banking and together with our key partners in the Treasury, the idea is to work on 2 levels. Companies that are in the way of designing that strategy, or at least looking at the KPIs from the Treasury level, our role is to work with them on that. So, okay, how can we help co-design, help identify, put in place frameworks or plans in order to meet those objectives, and what does it mean on a daily basis? This could be from investments with sustainable deposits to actually really supporting sustainable projects or turning our products into sustainability linked objectives. But also with companies that already are very mature internally in terms of really their own ESG agenda for their own company, and where we help to deploy that to their ecosystem, as you said, throughout the supply chain. Typically in Singapore, for example, together with the MAS, we have developed the MAS BNP Paribas Sustainable Supplier Financing Program that will help really deploy all this ESG agenda to the supplier side, which are smaller, less equipped in order to deal with that. And through a solution like a Sustainable Supplier Financing Program that could help enhance awareness, but also accompany and support into meeting the targets. So we work on all the chain, from the companies to co-design to companies that are matured, but we help them deploy in the supply chain with concrete solutions. But definitely, as Emmanuel said, acceleration is happening now. Timeline has been set, so it's at the center and the forefront of what we do every day.
And thank you, Sofia. We are encouraged to hear this because it is an important topic for the future and the rising expectations for companies and banks like Thales and BNP Paribas working together towards the net zero goal. Thank you, Sofia, and thank you, Emmanuel, for sharing your thoughts. This has been a very, very interesting conversation on the Treasury opportunities and the priorities in 2022. We've been listening to Sofia Hammoucha, Head of Transaction Banking Southeast Asia at BNP Paribas, and Emmanuel Brouillet, Vice President Finance, Thales Asia, on the inaugural The Asset Thinking Treasurer video series. Thank you too to BNP Paribas for making this series possible. Now stay tuned for the next installment of the Asset Thinking Treasurer video series, where we will be bringing you conversations on finance, the treasury function, and the role of the treasurer addressing and adjusting to plenty of changes, such as on automation, new technology, business processes, the reshaping of businesses via M&A, and big topics such as on climate change, ESG, and how treasury and finance are responding to these challenges as well as the opportunities. Meantime, thank you for joining us. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.